overcoming technical difficulties. That's the Carving It Up way. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Carving It Up 2023 NFL Kickoff Show. As always, I am Bryson Carver. Great to be with you again. 5 minutes late again due to some technical difficulties. Completely on me. I apologize. But this, I guess, is par for the course for the fact that this is the first time that we've done this particular show live. So very excited. Ryan Flowers is going to be joining in about a minute. What are we going to be doing today? Going to go division by division, okay? So we're going to predict all 8, AFC East, NFC East, all the divisions, all 8, and then go to award winners, so MVP, Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, all of these awards, and then, most importantly, and this holds a lot of weight for me given how this went last year, I'm going to predict the playoffs and predict who wins the Super Bowl. Now, I've been very calculated in terms of not tipping my hand in a certain sense, showing my cards about who I think is going to get to and win the Super Bowl. So I wanted to save it for tonight. But again, apologies for the technical difficulties. But yeah, very excited. Thank you to Devin. Show up in the comments. Everybody who wants to chime in the comment section, please feel free. But let's not waste any time. Our guest, once again, 3rd year in a row, he has been on the show. He is the host of Clutch Sports Talk, and he is now a coach. Would you please welcome to Carving It Up Live once again, man, the myth, the legend, Ryan Flowers himself. Coach, how you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm pretty good, Bryson, man. Thanks for having me on, man. I forgot how to work the lights and the camera, man. It's been such a long time. But thanks for having me back on for the third year in a row, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Well, listen, it doesn't feel right to do the show without you, man, because your expertise and your knowledge of the game of football, it's always appreciated. So before we get into the predictions and all this, is there one thing? There can be multiple things that going into this NFL season that you're really looking out for, that you're really excited about.
I'm actually anxious to see the young quarterbacks, like the Anthony Richardsons. A lot of them are going to be starting quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson got the nod. C.J. Stroud got the nod. I believe Bryce Young was probably going to get the nod if they haven't announced that already. So those 3 guys, and Will Levis, at some point he will go in. There's no doubt that. But so I'm really excited to see the young quarterback play, because if you think about it, outside of, we got some guys, but as far as young guys, there really isn't anyone else that's that young that I think is going to come behind, like the Mahomes, the Burrows, and stuff like that. So I want to see those guys get off to a good start.
Absolutely, and especially, I've talked often about Anthony Richardson and about how I defend the Colts starting from day one, because is it going to look rough? Is it going to look a little ugly? And even for those other 2 guys you mentioned, sure, but you got to go through those growing pains in order to get to one of the best in the league. Peyton Manning, 1st year in the league, led the league in interceptions. So that's par for the course, and it's that's how you become some of the greats of the game. Not everybody starts out looking like Patrick Mahomes, and even he has to take his 1st year off. So that's part of the developmental process for quarterbacks. I got to say, this is a very odd NFL season for me, or at least in a good way, that this is the 2nd time in my NFL rooting life that I've gone in with rooting for my favorite team for the very first time. Obviously, I announced, you were one of the people who advised me to become a Steelers fan. I obviously gave your guidance and other people. 1st year as a Steelers fan, I'm obviously very excited. I'll obviously get to Pittsburgh when we go to the AFC North. But if you're ready to go, man, you ready to get in the AFC East?
Man, let's just jump right in, man. I'm ready.
Let's do it. I'm gonna put up the AFC East standings. Here's what we got. Jets will win the division with an 11-6 record, followed by the Miami Dolphins at 10-7. The Buffalo Bills, yes, the Buffalo Bills, at 3rd place at 9-8. And I got the New England Patriots. I don't really like anything about how their offseason went, really the last few since Brady left, at 6-11. To the New York Jets, first and foremost. Obviously, we know this. Probably the story of the offseason was the fact that they acquired Aaron Rodgers in a trade with the Green Bay Packers. They returned arguably a top 5 defense in the NFL with Sauce Gardner leading that group, Quinnen Williams as well. Offensively, you have Garrett Wilson, who's making a case to be one of the 10 best receivers in the league, the offensive rookie of the year, coming out of last season. Robert Saleh, who's gotten better and better as a head coach in the NFL. My only concerns about the Jets revolve around the offensive line. I think that's going to be a problem for them throughout the season. Whether or not that they can build some good time as a cohesive unit remains to be seen. But listen, I think there's a lot. This is a more flawed division, Ryan, than I think people give it credit for. But I think the Jets have the least amount of flaws, so I will give them the nod for the AFC East, followed by Miami. I actually thought about putting Buffalo over Miami, but I decided against it because of the fact the Dolphins have just too good of a roster. Regardless, again, we obviously assume Tua gives gives you, let's say, 12 to 13 games-ish. But if Tua is healthy, if Tua is ready to go for the majority of the season, this is an excellent coaching staff, excellent skill position group, and a defense that I think is going to be better with the addition of Vic Fangio. And obviously they'll get Jalen Ramsey back by December. Buffalo at 9-8, I'm sure, is the big shock to people. Listen, we talk about teams, certainly great teams, that I don't know if everything aside from serious injury to any of the Bills' star players, everything that could have went wrong for the Bills this offseason did. They lost their defensive coordinator, who they weirdly fired, or he resigned. There was kind of an odd situation with Leslie Frazier leaving.
Stepped down.
He stepped down, and again, you got the issue with Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen. Is that going to be resolved? The offensive line is not better today than it was last year. The running game is non-existent. The wide receiving core, they did draft Dalton Kincaid out of Utah, who I really like, but he is, whether or not he can pan out to that remains to be seen. And the defense obviously doesn't have Von Miller week 1, so whenever he comes back, we'll see about that. And then New England, listen, they have arguably the most limited starting quarterback in the NFL, Mac Jones. Listen, the defense will be good. Defense will keep them in games, but simply put, the offense just simply isn't good enough. Certainly in the AFC, and I even argue if they were in the NFC, this would be the case to compete. So, Ryan, your thoughts on my predictions, and how do you see the AFC East stacking out?
The only thing I would probably change is the 1 and 2. I think that offensive line, man, that's going to be a problem for the Jets. And their first 5 games are against top 5, top 6 pass rushing defenses. So, will Aaron Rodgers survive that? Is going to be a very big question. Now, I can't argue the talent, right? They got Ferraris and Lamborghinis all over the field. You respectively had the offensive rookie of the year and defensive rookie of the year. They got stars all over the field. They added Dalvin Cook, but for me, that offensive line, man, as a coach and understanding how the trench works, you got to have dogs on the line of scrimmage. And right now, the Jets are very deficient in that area. And with an older, aging quarterback, that might be a recipe for disaster. So I would only switch the Dolphins and put them at 1 and put the Jets maybe at 2. But the Bills are definitely they're on the decline. I think they had their window. And I think that window's gone because, like you said, Stephon Diggs is doing Stephon Diggs types of things, and they still do not have a running game to support Josh Allen. And so Josh Allen ends up being the de facto running back. So other than that, I would probably have the Dolphins at 1 and the Jets at 2. And the Patriots, they are where they are. Like no one gets much out of them.
100%, and I'm glad that you and I seem to agree on the Buffalo Bills. I don't know if I'm seeing a lot of media coverage around some of the contenders in the AFC, and everybody just Buffalo's one of the top 4 teams in the league. I have a hard time seeing that, especially Josh Allen coming off of a really rocky season post Brian Dable. So can he bounce back? Sure, he's more than capable. He's one of the most talented players in the league, but that's a legitimate concern for Buffalo. We got some comments here. Our guy Barry, he's very excited to see you, Ryan. He says, "Look at my friend Ryan. He's happy to see you." We got the Darian Hopkins Sports Show. What's good, fellas? What's up, Darian? Very excited to have you and everybody else in the chat. Patrick Brown, our guy, he says, "I believe the Bills will regress. The defense lost Edmonds." Losing Leslie Frazier will be a huge subtraction for Buffalo. They could be a wild card, but that's all she wrote. 9-8 is accurate. And then our guy, Devin, My Thoughts, My Opinion podcast here at the Grid as well. He says he has Jets, Bills, Dolphins, Pats. Okay, so he's got Buffalo and Miami swap. So he's not as high in Miami, I guess, as I am. Certainly
I like Miami. I like Miami. I like Miami. I mean, if Tua can stay healthy, which I get, that's a big if. I get it. Like the Jets and Dolphins have 2 big ifs.
Yep.
Like they really do. But I think Tua will be okay this year. I'm praying to God that he is. And if he is, man, like we saw the trajectory he was on, prior to those head injuries, they were playing some really good football and then everything got derailed, so we'll see.
It's gonna be key for him for sure. And again, I think adding Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator is gonna be very, very important.
Right.
If Tua's, forget even the injuries. I've criticized his inconsistency. If he's kind of having an up and down game, but their defense is kind of able to keep him in it for a long time, that's going to be key for him in terms of, making the playoffs. And obviously in this case, they're more than capable of winning the AFC East. But I've decided to go with, I've had a love-hate relationship with the Jets, but I decided to grit my teeth and say, I'll take the Jets to win the AFC East. Yeah. Let's move on to the AFC South. I think this is one of the easier divisions to predict in the NFL. I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars at 12-5, followed by the Tennessee Titans at 8-9. The Houston Texans, I actually think, are going to be better than people think at 6-11. I like the trajectory where that franchise is going. And the Colts, while I like the trajectory that they're going, I got them at 4-13, just kind of a developmental year for them, building more towards 2024. Jacksonville at 12-5. Listen, I've been one of the very, very, and I do mean very few, that sees Trevor Lawrence as the third best quarterback in the National Football League. If you look at his numbers last year coming to this year, the second half of last year, just about by every metric, he was top 3 in the NFL. He obviously had the 27-0 comeback against the Chargers.
Right.
Didn't play bad against Kansas City in that divisional round game, just didn't get the benefit of the doubt on some drops and some turnovers, some fumbles by some of his skill position players. But Jacksonville's young. They made the playoffs last year. There's no reason to believe that they won't be better in 2023. I think Trevor and Doug Peterson are one of the most lethal head coach quarterback combos in the NFL. Tennessee, I actually considered putting in the playoffs, but that offensive line scares me, Ryan. It's as bad as it gets.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, adding DeAndre Hopkins was huge for them. It's really the strongest case you can make is that you still rely on Derrick Henry. DeAndre Hopkins is still a top 10, top 5 caliber guy, wide receiver. And the defense, listen, it struggled at the end of the season with injuries, but I still am not sure whether or not that they can stop some of the league's elite offenses. Houston at 6-11. Listen, they're not a playoff team, but you and I both like C.J. Stroud out of Ohio State. I know I really like D'Amico Ryans, the head coach. I think they've made some good moves in the defense. Offense, actually, the wide receiving core is better than people give it credit for. Like John Mechie coming back, God bless him, from cancer, and you got some other guys over there. They added Dalton Schultz. Damian Pierce was a really good running back for him. So I actually kind of think Houston's going to be pretty competitive in some games. And then the Colts at 4-13. I think Richardson has a ton of potential. I just don't think he's not the type of prospect who's just going to pop year one. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some growth and development, but that's where I got the AFC South. Ryan, your thoughts and your predictions for this division.
You know what? I think we agree on this one. Although, like you said, I like Anthony Richardson. I think he's with a good coach that understands how to use mobile quarterbacks, a la Jalen Hurts. But the loss of Jonathan Taylor, because he wouldn't even be available to play until week 6 or 7. I forgot what it was, because he's on the
early in the season.
He's on the PUP list now or some whatever reason. And his unwillingness to even stay in that franchise, that really is going to hurt Anthony Richardson, because behind a young quarterback, you need a good running back or a good running game to help him. And I don't think they'll have that. And so I agree. If Jonathan Taylor was in a good situation with the Colts, I would probably switch them with the Texans. But because of that, I like what you have here. And the Texans, they're like a sleeper team to me. Like you said, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but that wide receiving core is young and fast. Tank Dell, a lot of people not even talking about him. They got the guy out of Houston, a rookie. He's I did one of my clutch combine videos on him. Very, very explosive type of player. And in any offense, you need that guy that can just put fear in the hearts of the defense. And CJ Stroud, I think, might end up being the best quarterback out of this class, I think. And he's with a coach that is defensive minded. Now, how will that work out in the end? He really doesn't work out typically too often, but it'll be stable. And we'll see what they can do. And then the Tennessee Titans, look, Mike Vrabel is just a really good football coach. And I think he's going to literally scheme this team to be in the mix somehow, some way. Now, they won't win the division because we all can agree Jacksonville is the class of this division for the foreseeable future with the young quarterback, Doug Peterson back there, the offensive prowess that they have. Their defense isn't too shabby either. And so, yeah, I totally agree with all these picks here.
Yeah. So listen, I guess great people think right? We're lockstep on this division. But let's see what people in the comments think. So Darian Hopkins says he's got Jags Texans. He likes the Texans even more than we do, Ryan. Yeah. Jags Texans.
I like
Titans,
them, but not that much.
Sure. Listen, I can't doubt the greatness of Mike Vrabel and what he's proven as a head coach. Let's see. We've got Devin. He says Jags, Titans, Colts, Texans. So he's got the Texans finishing in last, but mostly lockstep. Barry says Titans still have one of the best coaches in the entire NFL. Vrabel will get them through. Listen, and if they're in the playoffs, it's kind of like, we're looking at the end of the season. It's January. There's the Tennessee Titans. They were the number 1 seed until Tannehill went down. They had some injuries to their defense, and they very well easily with Joshua Dobbs, my man out of Tennessee, they almost beat Jacksonville in that last game to get in the playoffs. So if they get in, I wouldn't be shocked. But man, you gotta, as I always say, if an offensive line is like an air conditioning unit, if it's not working, that's the only time you can tell when it's there. It's and Tennessee's is they lost Taylor Lewan. It's really, really bad. So.
Now they did draft the kid out of Northwestern, I believe.
Yes.
So maybe he can help bolster them or keep them afloat a little bit. But DeAndre Hopkins was a big signing for them, at least, because at least now you have a go-to guy on the outside, because Treylon Burks, I kind of gave up on him. And me and Dev were talking about this a couple weeks ago it was Patrick about a month or two ago about he's one of those second-year receivers that is kind of be like, well, it's a make it or break it type of year for him. And he's fortunate to have DeAndre Hopkins there now, because now that load is kind of being taken off of him, and maybe he can kind of maneuver a little bit, and he won't see the double coverages that DeAndre Hopkins is going to see. So maybe he might emerge. And maybe, I'm not sold on the guy, but maybe being in a room with him, with D-Hop, might kind of rub off on the kid, and we'll see what happens.
It's more than possible. I mean, it happened with I guess this is to a lesser degree, but this happened when Devontae Adams was like the third string guy behind Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, and look what he's developed into. So it's there's definitely precedent for it. Our guy Parnell's in the comments. He says, which QB in the NFC East division is under the most pressure? Well, you will have to stay tuned for the NFC East, Parnell. I know he's obviously our big Commanders guy here at the grid. Let's see. Patrick says the Jags have a first place schedule. Big games against Kansas City, Buffalo, and Cincinnati. Those 3 games will be tests for them. He says they get the Chiefs in week 2. And it's home for Jacksonville. That's, listen, Andy Reid, we know, is incredible in September, so that's going to be a tough one for Jacksonville, but they're more than capable of obviously getting that dub. And Darian says, the QB is the issue. I don't believe in Levis and Tannehill. I definitely don't believe in Levis. I think, I think
anybody that puts mayo in coffee, I can't.
Yeah,
I can't even take you seriously at this point.
No.
So,
I mean, you had Malik Willis beat him out for the backup job, and
and so Malik Willis really wasn't that great either. So that tells you a lot about Will Levis as a quarterback.
And I have concern about him from an intangible standpoint. But, we'll see what happens with the Titans in the AFC South, but I got the Jags taking this division. To the AFC North, to me, Ryan, the toughest division in football, bar none. You could make a case for any of these teams to win the playoffs. Here's what I got. I got the Cincinnati Bengals winning the division at 12-5, getting the tiebreaker over the Baltimore Ravens at 12-5. I've been, as much as it sickens me as a Steelers fan, it's very high on Baltimore's moves, particularly the new offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, coming in. I mean, the man made Stetson Bennett look like, actually turn him into a Heisman candidate, and then we see Stetson Bennett in the preseason look pretty rough. I got my Steelers going 11-6 ever since I chose them as my new lifelong NFL team. I said they go 11-6. Kenny Pickett would have a 28 touchdown season. George Pickens would have a mass year for him. The Browns finishing at 7-10. Deshaun has had a rough preseason, rough training camp. I have questions, regarding whether or not he can get back to the old Houston Deshaun. So I almost took Baltimore. I almost took Pittsburgh to win the division over Cincinnati, but I'm like, you know what? I can't discount the fact that Cincinnati has clearly the second best quarterback in football. Offensive line's better. Weapons are there. And defensively, albeit they lost their 2 starting safeties from last year. I think that the pass rush is very good. So I went with Cincinnati and Baltimore, and then Pittsburgh and Cleveland. So I don't know if I've seen any 2 predictions for this AFC North, at least in the national media, that are exactly the same. It's so hard to predict. Do you have a a pulse on
you know what?
Going on here?
That's a good question. Like I picked Steelers to win the division last year. That didn't work out for me, obviously, right?
Sure.
Like you said, this is a tough division, and the biggest wild card to me is the Baltimore Ravens because of their health concerns. If Lamar Jackson can stay upright and play healthy, or stay healthy, they're going to be one of the most potent offenses that we have in the National Football League, alongside with Odell Beckham. We don't even know what Odell Beckham is anymore at this point. And I know people might call me a hater, and I've been on it, but listen, he's older. I still think he has juice left in the tank. Yeah. But is he still the same OBJ that we're so used to seeing? And I know the last time we saw him play, he was phenomenal in the Super Bowl. But that's what, 2 years now? So
year and a half ago, yep.
Year and a half ago, right? So as far as your picks are concerned, I like the Bengals. They're the reigning champs in this division. I think Pittsburgh and Baltimore will duke it out. I'm going to give the slight edge to Baltimore, though, just because the quarterback, Kenny Pickett, he's still a young guy. Lamar Jackson's proven. I'm not a big Lamar Jackson fan. I know, so I get a lot of hate for that. But he's a former NFL MVP. I'll respect him for that. And he's done a lot of good things in the league so far with his legs. So just because of that, I will give them the slight edge. But I would not be surprised if the Steelers push for that second spot. There's going to be 3 teams coming out of this division for the playoffs. I don't think there's any debate in that. I think these guys those 3 teams are locked in. Cleveland, I think it's the whole Deshaun Watson thing. It's a wrap for him. I don't feel in my whole conscience that he will be the same guy he was in Houston. I think missing that time off really hurt him, and it shows. He's had a full off season, and he really didn't look good at all the times that we did see him in preseason. I get it's preseason, but it's so sad for Cleveland because for a couple of years now, they've had literally one of the best rosters on paper. And
certainly offensively, yeah.
offensively, like, you list some of those guys, you're like, this team should be, going deep into the playoffs. And they did that one year with Baker, but I feel bad for that franchise. I feel bad for their fans because I know a lot of people that support the Browns, and I'm just like, dang, you guys just can't get it right. And when they gave Deshaun Watson that money, it was a terrible mistake. They're locked in with him, and I don't think he's the same. I don't even if I can, and I'm holding you up here, but
Sure, go ahead.
if I can go back a couple years ago, I didn't even think he was that good in Houston. A lot of people had him as, oh, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I'm like, I don't know, man. I really didn't see it. Maybe I'm blind. Maybe I'm a bozo. I'm a clown, whatever you want to call me. But I really did not think he was the best quarterback in the state of Texas at the time when he was in Houston.
Right.
So,
Right.
but that's just my thoughts on that. But no, other than this, I agree with the predictions for the most part.
Yeah, and I think also too for you mentioned Lamar Jackson, and I've been a huge Lamar defender. I was one of the people beating on this table for a year, for him to get paid. But this is kind of the first year where the pressure is on Lamar in this regard. In that we criticize the former offensive coordinator Greg Roman. Well, you bring in more of a pass heavy offensive coordinator. Offensive line is amazing. You have J.K. Dobbins, who's an excellent running back. You bring in OBJ. I think Zay Flowers is going to be tremendous in the NFL. You have Mark Andrews. Defense played out of their minds at the end of the season, and John Harbaugh is obviously one of the better coaches in the league. So this is, especially in this division, I think there's a lot of eyeballs on Lamar Jackson to get it done. Even if the Ravens don't win this division, again, it's a brutal division. But if they can get in the playoffs, maybe win a game or even two, they're good enough to do that. That's going to be huge for Lamar. But listen, I think for my Steelers, look, I've said George Pickens has a massive year. I think T.J. Watt, I think we went 8-2 last year with him in the lineup. So Kenny Pickett played better at the end of the year. He's been amazing.
He's got to stay healthy too.
He's got to stay
healthy too.
Got to stay healthy for sure, no question about it. My only concern with Pittsburgh is the offensive line. That's been a concern of theirs the last few years, but I think they have addressed it. It's certainly, and to a certain degree this offseason. Let's see, we've got some comments. Obviously, complete objectivity by the Ravens fan in the building by our man Devin. He says, Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Browns. So he's only switching the top two. I can see it. There's a world in which Baltimore wins the division. I would not be shocked if, in the season. Neither. They've got just as good of a roster as Cincinnati. You could argue top to bottom. Obviously, quarterback, that's where the gap is. But you could argue roster top to bottom. There's not that big of a gap. You could arguably give it to Baltimore. So that would not surprise me. Darian Hopkins says, this is tough, but 11-6 in like that for the Steelers. He agrees with this order. And then Devin says, I think Zay and Bateman will benefit from OBJ. Yeah, veteran leadership. Plus, I think OBJ benefits from those guys in the same way he benefited, from Cooper Kupp in Los Angeles, making his job easier in that regard. Patrick says this is the UFC division. Bengals 13-4, Ravens 12-5, Steelers 10-7, Browns 7-10. I guess so. Our predictions are almost lockstep there. Patrick says 2018-19 Deshaun was pushing top 7 quarterbacks in the league. Since then, little to be desired. No question about that. And
that's a long time ago.
Very long time ago. And Darian says, Ravens got to stay healthy if they want to win this division. That's the key for them because they probably could have won the division last year. And remember,
they were healthy.
If it's not for that quarterback fumble on the sneak at the 1-yard line, that playoff game, we might be having a very different conversation about the Cincinnati Bengals coming into the season. The Ravens pushed them. There's that divisional familiarity. It's a very real thing. So finishing off in the AFC, let's move to the West. Again, I think this is pretty easy. Kansas City wins the division. I'm seeing a lot of people saying 20-0. I don't see anybody going 20-0, in the near future. There's going to be some games here and there where they slip up. It's 17 games. It's a long season. But Kansas City wins going away 14-3. Defense is better than people give it credit for. Chris Jones will be back at some point this season, and obviously the greatness of Mahomes and Reed and Kelsey for that matter. That we know who they are and what they represent. I got the Chargers at 9-8. Listen, you and I, Ryan, have been Charger skeptics for a very long time, and again, that's the team. I've been a Justin Herbert guy since day one. Since when he came to the league, I loved this kid in terms of a talent and leadership perspective, and I thought they had a decent draft. Yeah. The Austin Eckler thing concerns me in terms of is that going to be something, an issue in the locker room, an issue with the organization, and the fact that they, with Sean Payton on the market, they decided to say, you know what, we actually think that Brandon Staley has a better chance of getting us to the promised land than Sean Payton does. And to top it off, Ryan Flowers, you and I are just as familiar with this as anybody. They decided to go with Kellen Moore. as our offensive coordinator, which is, I think, going to make it even worse. So the Chargers fans, get ready for some curl routes, okay? Get ready for the curl routes in 2023. It's not going to be a fun ride for you. Denver at 8-9. I thought about giving I've all offseason. I'm like, okay, they had Sean Payton. Offensive lines could be better. The Broncos could be a 10-win team. But there's no way Russell will be as bad this year as he was last year. I still believe that to be the case, and they'll be in the playoff hunt. But the loss of Tim Patrick and then Jerry Jeudy being injured early in training camp, I think that's just going to be too much.
And Cortland Sutton. He's out too.
Cortland Sutton's dealing with injuries as well. The defense, obviously, they traded Bradley Chubb at the end of last season. I think Denver is going to be competitive, certainly better than they were a year ago. But again, the AFC's just so good. I can't see them getting to the playoffs. Man. And then the Raiders at 5-12. I don't like their head coach. Their quarterback's limited and can't stay healthy. Their offensive weapons are really good, but their defense, we know in the Derek Carr era, were never higher than 20th in 9 years. So I have no reason to believe that they'll be any better, even though they decided to address defense in the draft. So, Ryan, your thoughts on the AFC West going into the season?
1 and 2, I think those are locks right there. Yeah. 3 and 4, honestly, it's a coin flip.
Wow.
It's going to be a lot for Denver to overcome those wide receiver injuries. I mean, literally your top 3 targets are out for Russell Wilson. And this is a big year for Russell Wilson. And he's been in the league a while. I didn't realize he's been in the league like 12 years almost, or if not
year 12, yep.
Right. So I felt like I just seen him win the Super Bowl not that long ago against the Broncos, which is ironic. But the Raiders, I live here in Vegas, so I listen to their radio shows a lot, and I try to stay plugged in a little bit with them. I don't like them, but I just get caught up in the wash. Their offense is going to be good, I think, still, but I don't know, man. Their defense is so trash.
It's bad.
It's bad. I mean, the way they give up so many yards, big plays down the field. Josh Jacobs. I'm really debating. I don't want to be boring and say, yeah, I agree with you, but like, I'll switch it up. I'll put the Raiders at 3, and I think the Broncos might fall short. They just won't have enough offense, I think, at the end of the day to stay in games, and their defense is gonna. And matter of fact, fun fact about them: their defense was on the field more, if not, than any other team in the National Football League last season. So. Yeah. I think that might be the case. Now, I know they did bolster the offensive line. They added Mike McGlinchey, and they got another guy, I believe, from the Ravens to help shore up that offensive line. But who's he throwing to? I really don't. Sure. They did draft the kid out of, I forgot where he was from, but he's played a lot this offseason, or excuse me, in the preseason. But you're asking a rookie wide receiver to go out there and kind of carry the load while 3 other guys are, nursing injuries. So I'm going to go Chiefs 1, Chargers 2. We know those are locks. Raiders 3, and Broncos country. Sorry, you guys are not going to ride this year. So I got them finishing at 4.
No, I can finally get the monkey off my back from last year, picking the Broncos to win the Super Bowl. It's just, I'll never live that one down. But this
he fooled all of us, man. I mean, literally, we thought they were going to come in and be gangbusters, and literally that first game against Seattle was like, yeah, this coach can't coach, and they can't play. I mean, so we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think anybody challenges Kansas City for that division, certainly in the time being. So let's get to some comments before we move to the NFC, because we got quite a few thoughts in the AFC West. So yeah, we kind of answered Parnell's question. Will Russ bounce back? I don't know if he'll necessarily bounce back. I think he'll be better than he was a year ago, because he was maybe the worst quarterback in football last year. And by the way, he had some, after a cautious optimism for the Broncos would say, hey, after they fired Hackett, Russ had some decent moments here and there. He wasn't as bad as he was at the start of the season. So, listen, I don't think he'll be garbage, but I don't think he'll be good enough to
He won't be the same guy he once was before. And let's be real. Like, when he was really successful in Seattle, they ran the ball well behind Marshawn Lynch. They had play action. You can't let him cook. He's not a chef. He's a line cook. He's got to just get the buns out of the warmer, get the meat out of the little tray like it's Burger King, and put it through. Like, he's not a gourmet chef anymore, if he ever really was one. But so they got to run the football and see what happens after that. But I just don't think he's good enough anymore to will a team, in my opinion. And I like him, but it's just a fact.
Absolutely. And Darian says 5-12 for my Raiders. Big Raiders fan here. He says we are better than the Broncos. Listen. I don't even necessarily just discount that because was it 5 or 6 games last year they had double-digit leads and lost. I remember there was a game against the Cardinals.
They should have won a lot of games.
The Jags, the Chiefs, they had a double-digit lead.
The
against
Cardinals.
the
And remember that Cardinals game? The notorious one?
Yeah. Like that was that situational coaching for them was awful. I mean, I remember
terrible.
The peak of their season for me was when they gave up a 90-something yard drive to Baker Mayfield, who had been ran for all of 48 hours. Like that was when I was like, okay, this is never going to work with Josh McDaniels. And I do think Parnell. Yes, I think McDaniels will be fired by the end of the season, and the Raiders will go in a different direction. Darian says at least put us at 3. So yeah,
I did, Darian. I got you back, bro. I got you.
Listen, Ryan's a Vegas guy. He'll have your back.
I'll back him to a certain point.
Yeah, exactly. And Patrick says Broncos country. We don't care. It's Buffalo's country. That's right. It is Buffalo's country after what Dion did on Saturday against TCU. No question about it. No question about it. I think that's a much better draw than Denver is today, certainly. Okay, let's move on to your division, Ryan, the NFC East. You're going to like this one. I've got the Dallas Cowboys winning the division with a 13-4 record, followed by the Philadelphia Eagles at 12-5. Giants, I almost put them in the playoffs, but I decided to give them 8-9. I'm still not really believing Daniel Jones. I think the Commanders probably should tank for Caleb Williams or Drake May, but they're too good. They're too good. I guess to tank to a certain extent. They'll be 7-10, and Rivera will be fired at season's end. I apologize, Parnell. For Dallas, here's why I put them winning the division. Simply put, we haven't had a back-to-back NFC East champ in 2 decades. I have no reason, and it's unbelievable. So I have no reason to believe that'll change today. Philly's roster is listen, they did a good job in the draft adding some talent. They added, our guy Parnell called them the Philadelphia Bulldogs with adding Jalen Carter and Kaylee Ringo, just really going hard after those Bulldogs in the draft. What's that?
Nakobe Dean
from a year ago. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And so I think this is to answer another question Parnell had earlier in the show. He says, which quarterback is most pressure in the NFC East? As a big Dak fan, it's Dak Prescott. You have obviously a new offensive coordinator. It's sort of de facto in Mike McCarthy calling plays. They upgraded at wide receiver, adding Brandon Cooks. Michael Gallup's healthier. CeeDee Lamb's proven he can be a number 1 guy. The only concern, again, I think Dallas's defense could be one of the 3 best in the NFL. They got better. They added Stephon Gilmore as their number 2. Micah Parsons, we understand that he's probably one of the 10 best players in the National Football League, and Trayvon Diggs has only improved as far as being a cover corner. And so I think Dallas' defense is excellent. I think their offense has plenty of playmakers. The only question I have, and I don't think enough people give this attention, is the Cowboys' offensive line, which last year was bottom 4 in the NFL in pass block win rate. If Dak is going to be able to get the ball to these guys, the offensive line is going to give him time. And obviously, we know Dak's got to clean up the turnovers. I believe he will turnover. He's never been a high interception guy. I think that's why last year caught a lot of us off guard. So I'll have Dallas win the division. Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts is not going to allow the Super Bowl hangover, regardless how far they go in the playoffs. That's too good of a football team. It's too good of a quarterback, and I think Philadelphia is right back in. I almost put the Giants in. I've got them at 8-9. Only concerns for me is Daniel Jones. I think Jalen Hyatt, by the way, out of Tennessee, is going to have a big year for him. But I question Daniel Jones and whether or not he can back-to-back years. I mean, last year was supposedly a big year for Daniel Jones. He threw 15 touchdown passes. So I think he's overrated to an extent. The contract was a bit over the top for him.
Inflated,
a guy of his caliber. So I got the Giants finishing 3rd and Washington finishing at 7-10. Ryan, you're a Cowboys fan. So what's your thoughts on my picks here?
I listen, everyone that knows me or follows me or the guys in the Grid Network, I'm not a Cowboys homer. So I like to I like to keep it real. But in this particular case, it's not gonna seem like I'm being subjective or objective, but I agree with this. 1 through 4, I think is spot on. You mentioned you have some really good points about the Eagles. When you replace your offense and defensive coordinator from a year ago, that's tough. Along with 8 or 9 starters on your defense. That will come in at some point. They're talented enough to win some games still. The Eagles are not a trash team. So, but I think they will take a step back. The Cowboys are primed. And I'm not going to say they're going to go to the Super Bowl, but they have what it takes on paper to get the job done, especially with that defense backing them. And, like you said, the biggest problem with the Cowboys is the whole offensive line thing. I did not like the Mozzie Smith pick during the draft. I really felt like we would have been better suited taking an offensive lineman. I get the need because they needed a defensive tackle, a big guy, but I don't know if Mozzie's that guy. I really don't think he is. So I would rather just kind of get an offensive lineman because literally if you know Tyron Smith is not playing a full season. I think we
Nope.
know that. There's three things that are going to happen every day, or three things are going to happen. The sun will rise, sun will set, and Tyron Smith is going to get hurt. He's not going to play a full season. So who steps in for him? We don't know. We
Tyler
don't have
Smith's dealing with an injury, I saw, by the way.
See, there you go. Yeah, the other Smith is hurt, right? So,
Yeah.
it's only a matter of time before Tyron gets hurt. And I love him. He's a first ballot Hall of Fame out of USC. You know, the guy has been phenomenal left tackle throughout his career, but injuries have really hampered his seasons the last 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
So that's a big problem. The whole Tony Pollard thing too. We franchise tagged him. He's coming off a big injury. I wasn't a fan of Deuce Vaughn, but it seems like he did make the team. So good for him. I
like
think
Deuce more than you do, though. I think Deuce can be an impact player.
You know what? Watching him in the preseason, I think there's an opportunity for him to play in the National Football League. I think if they use him accordingly, he can do some things, right? But the rest of the running back room is kind of like, I don't know. Those guys are borderline UPS drivers, XFL players, I think, in my opinion. And no offense to UPS drivers, that they deliver my packages. But anyway, the Giants, listen, Saquon Barkley's gonna get hurt. He evaded it last year a little bit, but the guy has not really played back-to-back seasons without being injured. So it's only a matter of time. And like you said, Daniel Jones's contract was just. I get why they had to do it, because who else are you going to bring in there?
Sure.
Finding a quarterback in the National Football League is not something you can just go out and just say, oh, let's go get a quarterback. And although Daniel Jones isn't like that premier guy, who else out there is better than him that they could have gotten realistically?
It's all about options in life. Yeah.
Right. Could they have made a play for Lamar Jackson way back when he was, playing the field? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, if that was even an option, right? But I know his ransom was very high. So they decided, we'll just pay Daniel Jones and we'll see what happens. And then the Commanders, they're surprised. They could be a sleeper team only because they got talent. Like, I'm not going to deny them. They got talent. I think on, their defensive line, their front seven has always been pretty good. Like, they get after it, right? And their receiving core isn't that bad either. We forget about what's the guy's name? McLaurin, because
Terry McLaurin, yeah.
McLaurin, because he doesn't have no one really throwing to him like that. And he's still been able to be very effective and efficient without having like an alpha dog quarterback back there. Now, Sam Howell will be the guy for now, but do we really think Sam Howell is going to be the next big thing? Probably not. I mean, if you go down the list of quarterbacks they've had in the last couple of years, I mean, it's been rough for them. And they've always been
a lot of guys. Yeah.
A lot of guys have been in that jersey. So if they can figure it out on offense, hopefully Eric Bieniemy, he's going to get his chance now to call the plays on his own and won't have any type of Andy Reid influence in there. We'll see if he is that great play caller that we think he is, and will he be next in line to get that coaching position, which I think he will. But I think he'll be the next coach of the Commanders for sure. Unless the Washington Commanders somehow win the division and win a playoff game, which that's not going to happen. So unfortunately, sorry, Parnell, but it's just not going to happen. You guys are already not in the playoffs, and we haven't played one snap yet in the regular season. So, but other than that, I agree with the order here. Dallas 1, Eagles 2, Giants 3, and Commanders 4.
I'm glad you mentioned the part about Washington in a crazy world winning the NFC East. I just want to go ahead and put that message. Washington is in the NFC East. In case Ron Rivera forgot that, they are in the NFC East. I know he forgot that they were out of the playoffs last year and said Sam Howell was if I knew Sam Howell was this good, I'd start him last year. It's like well, he was in the building, coach. I mean I don't know how you missed that. That was bad. So but I agree with you overall. We have some comments here. Devin says Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Commanders. So same orders last year. That's perfectly within the realm of possibility. I think Dallas and Philly will split as they tend to do. And Dallas will get the edge.
They'll both steal a home game. They'll both They'll both win their home games for sure.
I agree. And Patrick says, Cowboys bugaboo is San Francisco. You can say that again. Week 6, I think it's actually going to be in week 5. In Santa Clara will be must-see TV, then go on to play the Chargers before the bye week. Yeah, the Chargers is a game that I'm really, listen, I may not be a Cowboys fan, but listen, I'm pulling for them to win that just to get the victory over Kellen Moore. I'm pulling for my man Dak. They were blaming him and giving Kellen the credit. That made me upset. Darian says, the problem with the Cowboys is not the regular season. It's can they win the playoffs? Well, the answer to that question, Darian, for the last last nearly 3 decades has been a resounding no. The
Yep.
failure obviously get to the NFC Championship game. And again, I've said a couple of weeks ago, and it may sound cheesy, may sound corny, but there's some odd vibes in Dallas. There's an odd feel in that it's almost like a cautious optimism, but it's like, if you get that feel about Jerry, like heads are going to roll if they don't at least get to the NFC Championship game.
Right.
I don't feel like this is a situation where it's just kind of the same old Cowboys season. I nicknamed it the Yoda season, if you remember from The Empire Strikes Back when Yoda said "do or do not." It's kind of like the
No, you're right.
It's a huge season for Dallas. And Devin says, only way Cowboys win the division is if Dak is the best quarterback in the division. Listen, he's capable of doing that. Again, I'm higher in Hurts.
Right.
I'm higher in Hurts today. Dak is undefeated against Hurts. Dak's, I think he's 27-7 against the NFC East, so he's kind of owned that division. So I will give the Cowboys the division title. And another Cowboys fan in here, my man Philip, says, how about them Cowboys?
Philly cheese, I like that name.
Philly cheese, yeah. Listen, good dude. I love Philip. Going to the NFC South.
Real quick before you move on to the NFC East, the whole Trey Lance thing. I haven't really had a chance to talk about this.
Okay.
Trey Lance is not going to play a snap next season. Okay,
no.
To me, that move was just like a leverage move for Jerry, to show Dak like, hey, well, you don't want to accept our terms. We have a young guy in the waiting arms here, and we'll keep Cooper Rush here. We'll see. So Trey, everyone was like, oh my God, the internet blew up when it's like, it really wasn't that big of a deal because Trey Lance is not going to play at all next season. So I just wanted to say that. So sorry.
I appreciate you saying that. And, when there was this whole narrative that, he's, the Cowboys don't believe in Dak as a long-term guy. That's like, okay. And I guess Buffalo, Baltimore, and Detroit doesn't believe in their guy either because they were all in the mix to go get Trey Lance. Dallas just gave San Francisco the best package. So appreciate you for sticking up for Rain Dakota Prescott as always. Now, let's try and get through this division as quickly as possible. The worst in the National Football League, the NFC South, where I have the Saints winning with a 9-8 record, followed by Carolina at 8-9. Atlanta, I know a lot of people really like Atlanta. I just don't trust Desmond Ridder, and I don't trust Arthur Smith as a head coach. I know that defense will be better, but I've got Atlanta at 7-10. I think Tampa Bay is going to be in the running for Caleb Williams and Drake May. Listen, they struggle with, albeit an old Tom Brady, but they struggle with Tom Brady. And again, kind of got in the playoffs feasting off of some pretty crappy competition, particularly in this division. But the Saints to me have clearly the best roster in the division. The only thing to me that hold them back is Dennis Allen, who I think is a proven bad head coach at this point. His record in the NFL is atrocious. But them adding Derek Carr, I'm a huge Derek Carr guy, going back to his days in Oakland and Vegas. But I think, you obviously have Alvin Kamara coming back off the 3-game suspension. Offensive line is a bit of a concern, but the defense will have a solid year. Defense kept them, in a lot of games last year. And Derek Carr's the type of quarterback, unlike an Andy Dalton or a Jameis Winston, to be able to keep them in those and win those. Carolina, I think, will give them a run for their money because of the fact that Bryce Young is going to a coach in Frank Reich who's worked with virtually every quarterback he's had. You have good weapons with Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Hayden Hurst, good run game, solid offensive line, and their defense is all right. So, listen, if Carolina ends up stealing for the division from New Orleans, I wouldn't be shocked, but I'll give New Orleans the advantage just because they have the better and more proven quarterback. Listen, Atlanta has a ton of offensive pizzas that I like. Bijan Robinson, I think, is going to be an excellent running back in the NFL. I like Drake London. I really like, Kyle Pitts, but the defense still has some questions to answer. They got better this offseason, added Calais Campbell. We're aggressive in free agency in that regard, but I think that's going to be something that I'm concerned about with them, and Tampa Bay is going to go into a full tank job rebuild. So your thoughts on the worst division of football, the NFC South, Ryan?
The worst division. You know what? The only thing I would flip is Carolina and New Orleans. I don't, like you said, I don't like Dennis Allen as a head coach. I think he's kind of overstayed his welcome in New Orleans. I'm surprised he didn't get axed already, if I'm being quite frank.
Sure.
Derek Carr, I think Derek Carr got a bad rap playing with the Raiders. He is a very good quarterback, and I think he gets a lot of crap just because they didn't win a lot, there. But I don't know how, I can't even count how many coordinators and how many offensive systems he had played in, but I can only imagine it was quite a few.
Yes.
And that's tough. That's tough learning new offenses almost every other year, if not every year. So I think he'll keep them afloat. The bottom three or bottom two, I think is on point. Atlanta is where they are. Like, I don't really think that when someone says Atlanta Falcons football, I don't think of anything, honestly. Like, I literally draw a blank. It's like I'm loading, unfortunately, because we don't know how Bijan Robinson is going to be, right? Everyone thinks he's just going to be this guy in fantasy, but they still are going to want to use Cordell Patterson and Tyler Algier a lot. So where does he fit in that mix? Okay, so he'll get the ball. I'm not saying he won't, and maybe he may emerge later on in the season, but it's only one football, and you can't give it to three guys at the same time. So we'll see. And then Tampa Bay, you're right. Tom Brady's gone. The head coach, he's basically on his way out. Todd Bowles, even though I like him, great defensive coordinator, but he's just not a head coach. And if you don't have a quarterback on top of not being a really good head coach, you're in trouble. And Tampa Bay they're going to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes for sure. So but like I said, the only thing I would switch is the Carolina at number 1. And honestly, Carolina had a very underrated low-key offseason. You mentioned the signing of Thielen. Miles Sanders is back there.
Good point,
The kid they drafted out of Ole Miss, he's a receiver, Jonathan Mingo, I believe.
Yes.
Who a lot of people don't even know who he is. But again, you know why I know him? Because I did a Clutch Combine video on him. And if you don't know about him, go onto my TikTok, go onto my Instagram, you'll see it. I mean, the guy, he's like a little mini Anquan Bolden. And if you don't know who Anquan Bolden, for the young guys in the chat here, go Google him. Google him, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So, but you're right. This is probably the worst division in all of football.
It's not good. That I feel very confident saying, I'll get into playoff predictions later. I feel very confident saying whoever comes out is going to lose immediately in the first round of the playoffs. It's just that division's got a long way to go. So let's get into some comments and please get out of this division as quickly as possible. Yep. John's late to the chat, but he always as always JETS.
Lord,
listen. John's a loyal Jets fan. He's been through a lot. Okay, so I gotta shout out my man. Patrick says, could New Orleans pry Jim Harbaugh away from Michigan in 2024? Or another coach that we don't know about? Well, listen, if they do, then the Saints are back in business because Jim Harbaugh's proven he's the best. I think it's fair to say the best coach in all of football in terms of college and NFL.
Yeah.
He was very successful in San Francisco, went to 3 straight NFC championship games.
Obviously, even prior to
successful. Yeah, at Stanford. Yeah.
Even before that, he coached at University of San Diego, the Toreros, and he turned that program around in one season.
He's one of those
he's a coach
changer type of coach. Yeah, exactly. He absolutely is. So that'd be a great get for New Orleans, Patrick, if they were able to pull that off. Darian says, I agree. It wasn't all Derek Carr's fault. Why we wasn't winning because the Raiders Nation blames it all him. And it's again, it just mentioned culture. It's a bad culture in Vegas, stemming from the top with the ownership, with the Davis family. Listen, it's been. Really, I think the Tuck Rule game really changed everything for that franchise. They've never really quite been the same ever since. And they cannot get the defense right, and that's often what plagued Derek Carr in many of games. Patrick also says, I'm eager to see how Bryce Young holds up. His height is concerning for me. Tampa Bay and Mike Evans are going to part ways midseason. I actually did a segment about that last week. I agree. I actually suggested, hey, Dallas, you missed out on the DeAndre Hopkins sweepstakes. If you go out and get Mike Evans, well, that could be a scary wide receiving core. Just trying to help my man Dak, okay? Because if he goes to Pittsburgh, that'd be even better. I'd love him to go to Pittsburgh, but I think we're already good with the wide receiver.
And you know what, too, with I know Patrick had mentioned Bryce Young. I don't think he finishes the season. I think Andy Dalton will end up taking over.
Really? You think Bryce Young's getting benched?
Yeah, I think so. Wow. I don't know if he's that good, man, honestly.
Okay, listen, I'm with. Listen, the height does concern me too, and smaller quarterbacks have struggled in the NFL, so that's like perfectly.
I think what end up happening, he'll get hurt. Andy Dalton will come in there, kind of whole serve, and then might just say, you know what, just stay in there, Andy. You're a veteran. We're gonna ride you as long as we can, and maybe they reevaluate Bryce Young next year, or if they let's just say, and hypothetically, they just are a crappy team and they're worse than the Buccaneers. And is Caleb Williams there? Do you take him? Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Well, obviously, yeah. Whoever gets Caleb Williams is going to get a superstar quarterback. That goes without saying. He's an incredible prospect. And listen, I definitely think Tampa's going to be in that mix. But man, if Carolina is, that'd be. They kind of pull what Arizona did, where they drafted Josh Rosen. He was terrible. They draft Kyler Murray. It looks like Arizona could go out and get Caleb Williams when it's all said and done. Let's move to the NFC North. Listen, you guys know, those out there watch this show for a long time know I am in on some Detroit Lions this season. I love me some Dan Campbell. I've come around on the man. Detroit at 11-6. They've got a top 5 offense in the NFL. The defense did improve this offseason. By the way, offensively, how about this, Ryan? A guy that you and I love, Jahmyr Gibbs at the University of Alabama is going to be a problem. The second coming of Alvin Kamara is Jahmyr Gibbs. They got an amazing offensive line. Amon-Ra St. Brown. You hope Jamison Williams, once he comes back from the gambling suspension, gets to the player, the type of player he was at Alabama. But they're loaded with offensive playmakers. Ben Johnson's one of the better offensive coordinators in the NFL. And the defense, which was a huge issue for them last year, albeit not toward the end of the year, got better. I decided to put Minnesota at 10-7. I almost had them missing the playoffs. I decided to put them in for this reason, Ryan, that the offense is still good. They obviously went out and got Jordan Addison, we understand there's some off-field concerns with him there, but
Yeah.
obviously if he's able to reach his potential, he'll be a scary threat. Justin Jefferson's the best receiver in football in my eyes, and Kirk Cousins, for as much as we criticize him, he's a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. At least to me, he's proven that. I like their head coach Kevin O'Connell, and the defense was a massive concern for them last year. What do? They went out and got Brian Flores. He's going to fix that defense. They will not be 31st or wherever they were at in pass defense last year, which really hurt them, particularly in that playoff game against Daniel Jones. I remember there was even a Thanksgiving game where they made Mac Jones look like Tom Brady. That's how bad that defense was. So that'll be better this year. So I'll give Minnesota double-digit wins. It is a talented team. Chicago put it 8-9. I think Justin Fields is better this year than he was last year. It's an improved offensive line. They drafted my man Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. They upgraded obviously in the whole number 1 pick trade. They went out and got DJ Moore, who I've always loved, from Carolina. They got Chase Claypool. They got Darnell Mooney. Tight ends are good. So I think this is a big year for Justin Fields. That year 3 always tends to be big for quarterbacks. I think he shows up and shows out with his arm and with his legs. I want to see him improve more as a pocket passer. Didn't really see that last year, albeit he was running for his life, kind of Archie Manning style. So obviously pulling for him, but I think the Bears have a solid year. And listen, I know the Packers fans probably don't want to hear this, but somebody's got to be honest about this team and their outlook going in on 2023. And they're going 6-11. Okay, they're going to be the worst team in the NFC North. I don't believe in Jordan Love. I don't believe in Matt LaFleur. I think this is going to be a disastrous year for the Green Bay Packers. Listen, Cheesehead Ozzy is going to make some appearances every once in a while, but this is not going to be a good year for Green Bay.
Like
So don't mind me, Ryan. What do you think about the NFC North?
I guess I can get on the whole Lions thing there. Are they ready to make that jump? Are they ready to be in the spotlight per se? Right, they got a big game this Thursday, right, against Kansas City. If they lose, I'm okay with that. I just want to see how they play. If they come out and it's a close game, then you can, that's something to build on. And I get it. Like, this is the National Football League. There are no moral wins or moral victories. But for a team like this at that end of the year, the way they did last year, on a high note, if they can go into Arrowhead opening night and fight the defending champions, and so I'll have to give them credit. I do have them at number 1. I am a little torn with the rest of the last 3 because I actually still believe in the Packers.
A lot of people do.
As they got 2 really good running backs. Their offensive line is still one of the best in all of the National Football League. You got a young quarterback with some young receivers. Christian Watson he took flight a little bit last year, especially after that Cowboys game when he torched the Cowboys. But how will him and Jordan Love play? That's a big question. The whole thing with the Bears, yes, they did go ahead and add a bunch of guys that should help Justin Fields. I'm just not a Justin Fields believer, unfortunately. I think he's more of a runner, and eventually he's going to run himself out of the league. And Kirk Cousins has been in Minnesota for, it feels like, forever now.
Yeah.
And they just can't get over the hump. You let Dalvin Cook go, your best running back. It's going to be running back by committee there. You still got the best receiver in all of the land. So I'm kind of, this one's tough for me, man. I think the Lions are in a good spot there, but I would probably switch the Bears and the Packers if I were to do this. So,
I respect that. And something else too, the way you were describing the Packers, and you're accurate on all your points that they got 2 good running backs, offensive line's great. I look at them honestly as the Atlanta Falcons with a slightly better defense. Obviously they got Jair Alexander. They went defense in the draft. That's going to be something for them this year that's going to be able to keep them in a lot of games.
Right.
But that's for Green Bay again. Like I said, losing historically great quarterbacks tends to not pay off pretty well. You can ask the New England Patriots how they've recovered since Tom Brady's left. So Packers Nation, this is gonna be a rough year for you. I hate to say it. So,
but what if Jordan Love comes out there and just balls? I mean, we don't know anything about him really. Like,
that's true.
He got the 1 start against Kansas City, which he struggled obviously, but anybody would struggle going into that stadium. And they put your mom like in a nosebleed so she couldn't even see you. You know what I mean? So
that was cold. They didn't have to do her like that.
They did it, man. Like Jordan Love, really, man. Like, you can't like just. I get it. You weren't a starting quarterback. You're at least making 6 figures, bro. Like, you can't get your mom, go on StubHub or Ticketmaster and get your mom some good seats. Come on, bro. That's your mom, dude. Like, for real. Like, I don't know.
She better get better seats in that Lambo. Okay, that's gonna be
dude. Well, he better have made it up to her for Mother's Day, because those are some crappy seats she got. Like She was better off just watching the game at home.
She got a lot better view, and it'd have been warmer at home. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got some comments here in the. Patrick says, "Can we get the kneecap soundbite?" I'm using a different like streaming account, so I do not have the kneecap soundbite on tap for you, Patrick. I apologize. But he said, "I've got Detroit hosting a playoff game. If they have to travel to Dallas or San Francisco, stay tuned. If Detroit pulls a Colorado on Thursday night, good analogy. We're having a very different discussion very soon." Patrick says, "Detroit 12-5, Minnesota 10-7, Chicago 8-9, and Green Bay 5-12." So he's got Green Bay winning one fewer game than I do. And he says, "We're going to see if Matt LaFleur will survive the season. Minnesota will regress. I'm not a big Kirk Cousins believer." And TJ Hopkins got paid before Justin Jefferson got paid. That was a big. Listen, I like TJ Hopkins, man, but that was, man, Travis Kelce's got to be.
It ain't worth it.
Travis, that's true. That's true. Yeah, but Travis Kelce got to be sitting back and thinking, "Oh, let's go. I'm about to get the bag pretty soon." About to get the bag.
Right? Yeah. I mean, he should be the highest paid tight end.
Heck yeah, he should. He's one of the best ever. And Barry says, "Get Jordan Love the hell out of here." Yeah, it's not. I don't see it. Green Bay's. Listen, they had Aaron Rodgers last year and they were 8-9. They were 4-8 at one point in the season. So
True.
Let's not overreact. Okay.
True.
Final divisional predictions. NFC West. Niners are the best team in the NFL talent-wise. I've got them going 12-5. I'm only putting them at 12. They're good enough to go 15-2 in my eyes. Just I worry about the health of the quarterback position. If Sam Darnold gets in there, that could be a problem. But I've got the Niners at 12-5. I actually decided to give Seattle double-digit wins. I know you've been high on Seattle for a while, Ryan.
I love Seattle.
Can you give me what's before we even get to further predictions? What's your saying about Seattle? About they can play anywhere.
Oh, the Seattle Seahawks are like a Dr. Seuss book. They can play on a train. They can play on a plane. They can play anywhere, like green eggs and ham. You could take them anywhere, and that's what I love about Seattle.
They run the football well. They by the way,
they got dogs, man. They got Bobby Wagner back too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's gonna be huge for
Jamal
Bobby
Adams.
Wagner.
Hopefully, he'll play like 2 games, and he'll be good for them for 2 games, and he'll get hurt, but still.
And the thing, too, for Seattle is the fact that, they had such a young roster last year. A lot of, Reek Woolen was huge for him last year. He's a Pro Bowl caliber player. Offensive line, which was a huge concern sort of towards the end of the Russell Wilson era. All of a sudden, they get that right. It's excellent. Geno Smith, obviously, comeback player of the year. And they added Jackson Smith and Jigba, arguably the best receiver out of last year's draft, to pair up with Metcalf, to pair up with Lockett. If my man, what's his name, running back from Michigan State, who plays there? Oh, my gosh. Number 9. I'm blanking on his name. This is
Michigan
what I'm
State.
talking about. See, I'm kicking myself now. I'm gonna have to Google this.
I'm kicking. They got a stable of guys there because they got DJ Dallas too, the guy out of Miami they drafted a couple years ago. Kenneth Walker, yes.
Kenneth Walker. I loved him at Michigan State. Yeah, but he had a great rookie season last year. Offensive line good. So listen, I have a hard time believing Seattle's going to regress. By the way, Pete Carroll, if God forbid, knock on wood, something happens to Geno Smith, Pete Carroll can get in there and play quarterback. We saw the tape from practice. He looks good.
He can get back there.
He's the 35-year-old, 75-year-old. That's what he is. Rams at 7-10. I decided to put them up to 7. I probably should have regressed that even further, but they have no depth whatsoever. Only reason I put them at 7 is the fact that I hope, this is hope against hope, that Stafford stays healthy long enough for them to be at least be competitive in some games. McVay is still a great coach. He just doesn't have a heck of a lot to work with. Aaron Donald's still great. The question is, will he last beyond the season? Is there a potential huge storyline? Could the Rams trade Aaron Donald to sort of put them on the track to rebuild? That's gonna be a question for them. I think the Cardinals going 1-16. I decided to give them one win just because they got my man Josh Dobbs as their starting quarterback potentially. So I'm gonna be nice to my man Space Dobbs, but going 0-17 is very hard to do. So I've given Arizona a win, but I think the Cardinals have the number 1 pick in the draft. So NFC West, Ryan, what's your thoughts?
I like it. The only thing this is gonna be clickbait here, but or what do you call it, a hot take?
Yeah,
I like Seattle. I like Seattle winning the division. I think they're tailored to contest the 49ers. I mean, they're tough. I think right now, if we look at the quarterback play, who's got the better quarterback? I would say Geno
I'm still rolling with
Smith
Sturdy Purdy, Ryan. I'm still rolling with Sturdy Purdy. Okay.
I don't know, man. I don't know how that shoulder is going to be. Yeah, now he's going into year 2. People have film on him now. Defensive coordinators know him. They know his tendencies now. Will he be able to just be that like game manager type of player? Not to say the Niners are not a good roster. They got a great roster. Like they still have one of the best rosters in the National Football League. But I'm really picking with my heart on this one, really, because honestly, logically, I should say San Francisco, and I get it, right? Some people might call me clowns in the chat, but I really like Seattle, man. I really do. Just like you mentioned, the additions that they made. You know, the offense got a little bit more punch in there.
Yep.
And that's a tough place to play too. You know, going to Seattle, the Northwest, it sucks. It sucks, man. So, but everybody, I mean, the Rams, I think the Rams, they sold out for that Super Bowl, and well deserved. They got it, and now they're gonna suck for the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to do a fire sale on a lot of these guys, you know. And look, Cooper Kupp is questionable. I think he got hurt earlier this last week. Like, so what's going on with him? You know, Aaron Donald, he's still a dominant force, but he's not gonna will you to any wins like that. Like, there's no really defensive player that could just outright win you games like that. So, and then the Cardinals, you know, we you know my thoughts on them. I've always clowned them in the offseason, from their jerseys, to just everything. Like, they're gonna suck really bad. and that I don't know if you guys heard that clip from their coach.
Yeah, I'm about to ask you, Ryan, do you have fire in your gut, Ryan?
Yeah, after I eat like a burrito with hot sauce, yeah. But not after that speech. That was the worst speech of all.
It was so bad.
And let me give you some insight. I don't know if all coaches do this, but me as a coach, a lot of times I prep my pregame speech a little bit. Just sometimes it's from the heart. A lot of it is from the heart, but a lot of it is things that I want to hit during that, because I want to be able to speak to these players. I want to play on their heartstrings a little bit, right? And that guy, I don't know if he woke up that day and he listened to himself in the mirror and was like, that sounds really motivating. It really wasn't. And you can look in the room, they're all kind of like, it's just as cringeworthy as the let's go eat a W.
Oh yeah,
that was cringy. And Jonathan Gannon, that was terrible.
It was like an office skit. It was like a Saturday Night Live skit.
It was very weird. And I was like, even when he first met his first players, that when we saw that clip and he was coming, like, yeah, what's up? Like, it's like, you know, but maybe that wore off on him. What's the name? I'm drawing a blank. The head coach of the Eagles.
It's Nick Sirianni.
Like, he was weird like that too when he first had his first presser. If everyone remember, he was kind of weird too, because but this guy is just, he won't be there long. I mean, he won't even be there long enough to have 15 minutes of coffee. Okay, so the Cardinals are going to suck. They're going to be the worst team in the National Football League. We can put it down right now. I'll put a dollar on it right now that they're going to be the worst team, and Caleb Williams will be in Glendale next year taking snaps for the Arizona Cardinals, and Kyler Murray will be shipped off somewhere else, so he can go maybe join the FaZe clan and play Call of Duty or whatever he likes to play in some social media house. I don't know, but.
And listen, if the good news for the Cardinals, obviously there's not any good news this season, but you have your first-round pick, which I think we both think is going to be number 1 overall. They've got Houston's pick from the Will Anderson trade, and they'll get some picks from Kyler Murray when they move him. So, you know, listen, if they're able to get the coach right, I'll tell you one thing they do need to change. They got to change the dang uniforms. Those uniforms suck.
They're like practice jerseys. When I seen them, I was like, oh, those are cool practice jerseys. Oh, wait, those are the game jerseys? As a fan of that team, I'm not a fan, but if I was a fan of that team, I am not going to pay $120+ for a practice jersey. I can just go to Big Five or Dick's Sporting Good or whatever your local sporting goods store in your town, and buy a practice jersey. Arizona Cardinals, you got to do better. You got to do better, man. Like, come on, let's be real. It's bad.
Let's go to the comments. Hopefully the comments are better than the Arizona Cardinals. Barry says, listening to you, I guess he's referring to me, Fawn over the 49ers upsets me. What upsets me more is that they were in your final 2 of team choices. Bias takes all season long. Listen, I admire well-run organizations, and they're well-run, Barry. Okay, I got to give love where it's due. I didn't pick them. Look at the hat I'm wearing. I didn't pick them. So, listen, I like Sturdy Purdy, man. Give Brock Purdy some love. Patrick says, Brock Purdy isn't Mr. Irrelevant this season. This will be a very interesting year for them. The biggest holdout is Nick Bosa. Can they get a deal done the coming days? From what I'm reading, it looks like they will. So it looks like he'll probably be ready to go by week 1. Obviously, they'll need him. He's probably the second best pass rusher or third best pass rusher in the NFL, up there with T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, those guys. So they're going to be an issue. Patrick says Niners have no weaknesses. If they can't get a deal together, it could damper Super Bowl hopes. Seattle will pick up where they left off in 2022. And to the Cardinals now, Barry says man couldn't lead a shopping cart out of a parking lot. He couldn't. It's bad. It's really bad. And Patrick says Seattle 12-5. Okay, so he agrees with you, Ryan. Niners 11-6, Rams 6-11, and Cardinals are going to win a single game this year. So before we get to the playoffs, let's do real quick. We'll go through these super fast. My award predictions, and you could chime in, Ryan, what you think. So I've got Dan Campbell winning Coach of the Year. Again, I've come around on the man. I clowned the Lions when they made the move a year and a half ago, or I'm sorry, really a couple years ago when they made this move to making their head man. I'll tell you this. He's similar to Deion Sanders in the sense of, does Dan Campbell strike you as like the X's and O's genius of like a Shanahan or a Reed or somebody? No, but his team fights their guts out for him every single game, and they're always, to the very end. I remember they almost came back week 1 last year and beat a Philly team that ended up playing the Super Bowl. So I've got Dan Campbell winning Coach of the Year. Obviously, I've got the Lions going 11-6 and winning the NFC North. Who do you like as your Coach of the Year, Ryan?
You know what? I can't agree. I can't disagree with that one. I like Dan Campbell. I became a fan of him after Hard Knocks because you got to see the inner workings of him. Like you said, he doesn't come off as being an X and O guy. If I need to know a good protein or a pre-workout, I'm going to call Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
But I like that pick. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone that with a team that's right there on the cusp will be able to turn around this year. Because I really feel the Lions are due to really to skyrocket up the charts here. So I like that pick.
Yeah, and I thought about Doug Peterson as well. I think because I think the Jags are going to win 12 games this year.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Doug
Peterson, you know what? Maybe even Frank Reich. Maybe
just
if
they win the division.
If they win the division, I think that'll be a good one too. But Dan Campbell for sure would be deserving. Like that. That's a realistic Coach of the Year, I think.
You got to buy some kneecaps. You got to buy some trophies that appear this season.
I might have to bust out the leather patent boots and get a contract for the WWE, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's move on to the only war where there is no debate whatsoever in a great way. Comeback Player of the Year is going to be Damar Hamlin. I don't even think this is even an argument. Obviously, coming back from death, literally on the field. On
he literally died.
Yeah, he literally died against the Cincinnati Bengals, and obviously the props and love and nothing but praise to the medical staff in Cincinnati doing what they did. And but Damar making the Bills roster again. It doesn't matter if he gets one interception, if he plays one snap this year. Just the fact that he's playing the game of football.
I agree.
He's comeback player. I remember having you on the show, Ryan, days after this happened. We were thinking, like, man, like, is this guy going to get back to a normal sense of life again? The fact he's out there suited up playing football isn't
nobody can win this award other than him. He's solidified that. Like you said, he died, folks, and like he came back. And what's this? The name of this award is the comeback player. This guy came back from death to play. He's got to win the award. I don't care if you broke your leg last year. It means nothing. This guy died literally on the field for minutes? Yep. And he's back here. But I mean, it's a blessing, honestly.
Amen.
Like you said, whether he makes one tackle or not, like this for him to even be in a position to make the 53-man roster is very significant because, like you said, we were talking about this on your show. And I remember that night, man, I had never seen anything like that in all my years of watching football. We've always seen people maybe get paralyzed or hurt, but the way the mood was in that stadium, you can tell that something significant had happened. And if you watched it that night, you literally saw someone come back to life. Like it was a Bible. It was like Lazarus. Like he came back from the dead, and now look at him now. So kudos to him. But yeah, this is a no-brainer for sure.
How awesome would it be if on Monday Night Football, obviously Monday Night Football is when the near tragedy happened. How awesome would it be if he picks off Aaron Rodgers in week 1? Would that not just be, oh my gosh, that would be unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yep.
So let's move to Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think it's going to go by my man Joey Porter Jr. out of Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers stole him in the second round. Obviously the son of Joey Porter, who's obviously played with the Steelers. But I think he's going to be the number one corner. Obviously they got Patrick Peterson there, kind of as a good veteran presence. But I think Joey Porter's he's going to get a lot of tough assignments. Cincinnati, he'll probably get either a T. Higgins or a Jamar Chase. With Baltimore, Zay Flowers, Odell. With the Browns, probably an Amari Cooper. Like he's going to get tough assignments week in and week out, given the Steelers' schedule. But I think he leads the league in interceptions this year. I think Joey Porter has a big year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, do you think it's Joey Porter? Do you think it's somebody else, Ryan? Like
I think Will Anderson is going to have a say in that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's going to get after the quarterback a lot for the Texans. And with your head coach being a defensive-minded guy, I think they're gonna drop a couple sacks for that guy, man. And I think he'll have some say in that conversation.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think he's going to have a big season. Staying in the division, Offensive Rookie of the Year. A guy I just mentioned, Zay Flowers.
Ooh.
I loved this kid out of Boston College.
Yeah.
I love what I've seen in the preseason. He's a big-time run-after-catch guy. I think it was either you or Barry in the draft show that mentioned they said like he runs angry. He's tough to tackle. He's obviously got electric speed. And he's exactly the type of guy that Lamar Jackson needs. To kind of go that next level as a pure passer in the NFL. So I got Zay Flowers as the offensive rookie of the year. There were some other guys, Bijan Robinson. I thought about Jahmyr Gibbs, but I decided to go to Zay Flowers with this award. Any other candidates that?
No, this is a good one. I think if it's not him, maybe a quarterback, but it's one of those like maybe CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson. But those are a little far fetched, I think. But I think this guy with Lamar playing with him, I like Zay Flowers, and I'm not being biased because of his last name. I think he's a really good player. So I would have watched him no matter what team picked him. So I like this. You're spot on this one.
Let's just hope he doesn't torch us in the two times we play him this year. That's gonna be Joey Porter Jr. He's gonna have to, he's gonna have to show up. Stick in the AFC North. The defensive player of the year is T.J. Watt. Listen, you're talking about a guy who I think this year, Ryan, he's gonna break the sack record. I think he's gonna pass Strahan for the single season sack record this year. I think that'd be 22.5's record. I think 20. So if he gets 23 or more, he'll break the record. Because remember that season they tied Strahan. He missed 2 games that year. So if he stays healthy, again, last year the Steelers are a playoff team. If T.J. Watt doesn't go down in week 1, so listen, they win darn near 80% of the games he plays. Dating back to last year. So he is as unblockable as they come. I thought about Micah Parsons because I think
that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't blame you. He's a perfectly legitimate candidate. Sauce Gardner, I think, would have an argument if the Jets are great. But I think T.J. Watt is going to have an absolute just monster year. I think in the long run, he's going to end up having a better career than his older brother, J.J. And I think he'll be sort of the driving force to the Steelers. I really do. I think he'll be the driving force of the Steelers, having a big-time season. So you got Micah Parsons winning this award?
I like the linebacker. As long I'm hoping that in the offseason he kind of bulked up or conditioned himself because he faded a lot, towards the end of the season. And I don't really remember seeing him a lot in those last couple games,
Sure.
Early on, I mean, he was everywhere. And it could have been the scheme. I don't know what they're calling in the huddle, but it just seems like I didn't see enough of him getting after the quarterback later on in those games. And maybe I missed something. I'd have to go back and watch the tape, but TJ Watt, I mean, you can't, dude, TJ Watt is like a cheeseburger. You can't go wrong with that. If you don't like a cheeseburger, unless you're vegan or a vegetarian, you can't go wrong with that. And he's that guy. He's that good. And like you said, as long as he can stay healthy, there's no stopping TJ Watt other than injuries.
That's it, and that's really what got him last year. By the way, just for the record, I obviously I love a good cheeseburger as well, but some of those vegetarian burgers that are actually
they're pretty good. Yeah, they're not
good.
Gonna lie. I've had a vegan burger and I was like, wow, this is not meat.
Yeah, it tastes good. Tastes good. I'll tell you what else is going to be good for this particular team. And again, if you notice, aside from Dan Campbell, all of these awards have been AFC awards thus far in the AFC North entirely. We'll branch out the AFC North for Offensive Player of the Year. I think you're going to see the Cooper Kupp effect for Garrett Wilson. Remember, Cooper Kupp was a good player. Once he got Matthew Stafford, he had probably the best season any receiver's ever had. Not saying Garrett Wilson will be quite that, but I think now with Aaron Rodgers, listen, we know the impact Aaron Rodgers had with Devontae Adams. Garrett Wilson's the type of guy. He had 4 quarterbacks last year and was still the runaway Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he backs up with Offensive Player of the Year this season. You saw it listed. It was a small sample size, and it was preseason. But that touchdown pass, that little sidearm from Aaron in the red zone to Garrett Wilson was just picture perfect. I got Garrett Wilson as the Offensive Player of the Year. Do you have any other potential candidates?
I think Jettas will contend for that. But Garrett Wilson, I think, is going to get that Devontae Adams treatment from Aaron Rodgers for sure. And oddly enough, they were the same number. So it's kind of funny. So, but Garrett Wilson he's a dog, man. But I think Justin Jefferson will be up there too. His stats are going to be among the tops just because he's going to be. It's not that he's been the guy there, but he's literally the guy there now. Like for real, no Thielen. There's nobody else there. He is the veteran in that room now as far as like accomplishments. Who's another guy? Maybe. When was the last time a quarterback won Offensive Player of the Year? Like I said, maybe I don't pay attention. I don't pay attention to this enough, but there's got to be some quarterback out there. I think that
could Lamar Jackson win it because of what he can
do
with his arm and his legs.
He could. That's a very good point. Maybe if he stays healthy, Lamar would be in contention just because of, like you said, he'll run for touchdowns, he'll throw for them, he'll have rushing yards. I don't think any running backs will be in contention anymore just because there's so much depth with running backs and teams will have this guy run the ball here. And then, so you won't see that anymore. It's going to be receivers or quarterback, but Garrett Wilson is definitely would be in my top 2 or 3 guys to win it.
Yeah, listen, regardless how far the Jets go, I think he's going to have a huge year. And again, I see sort of a parallel between him and Cooper Kupp. And then finally, the most important one, the one we always pay attention to, there's a couple guys I thought about. For a second, I thought about Dak Prescott if the Cowboys do go 13-4, but I decided against it. I almost took Patrick Mahomes, but I decided to go with the man I believe is the 3rd best quarterback in the National Football League, and that is Trevor.
Wow.
I think Trevor's going to lead the NFL in touchdown passes. He's going to throw 45 touchdowns, a second full year in the Doug Peterson system, which is very friendly to quarterbacks, as we know. You get Calvin Ridley back, and we've seen Calvin Ridley. For what I've seen in training camp, he looks amazing. That year off certainly it helped him from a health standpoint. You still have Christian Kirk. You still have Evan Ingram. Offensive line's better. Certainly hope the defense will be better, but I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be the driving force to the Jags having a season in which they are contending for a Super Bowl title. I think he's that good. I think he's one of the most talented quarterbacks, certainly one of the most talented prospects we've ever seen come to the NFL. I got Trevor winning MVP. Ryan, do you your thoughts on this, and who do you have as MVP?
I know you love Trevor Lawrence, so I'm not going to – you love him. I know you do. Honestly, I like Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes. I think those guys are going to be perennial MVP type of caliber guys that we talk about. But for this season, Patrick Mahomes won it last year, right? So
yes. Which, listen, Aaron Rodgers went back to back.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay safe, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna stick with Patrick Mahomes, man. Watching that quarterback series on Netflix, I knew he was good. I knew he was good, but the preparation that he does, especially with his body, and to deal with those outside forces, like having the cameras in front of you, your wife is annoying, your brother's annoying, and you're out there winning Super Bowl championships. He's
a legend.
He's a
By
legend,
the way,
man.
with the beat up ankle in the whole playoffs.
Yeah,
he's unlike anything we've ever seen at the quarterback position in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
So
I'm not a Chiefs fan like that, but you know what? I got to give props where props is due, and Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the National Football League. Overall, you hear these debates all the time, like, oh, well, he's not the best thrower. Okay, I get that. But as far as top to bottom, overall, the guy is really good. And Joe Burrow is not that far behind him. Don't get it twisted. Joe Burrow is really good too. Joe Burrow is 3-1 against him now or something like that.
3-1.
So, but Patrick Mahomes if anything, Joe Burrow is really close because he had to do a lot with very little originally, because I was not a Zach Taylor fan. Was not.
Me neither.
When he got hired. Offensive line problems with this and continuing kind of. They really have not really solved the offensive line yet there, really.
They added Orlando Brown. I think that'll be
now they have, but I'm saying even the Super Bowl year they won it last year, it's Joe, to me, it's Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and then you can have the discussion about the other guys.
Yeah.
And Trevor Lawrence is in the top 5, I would say, just because he's got a very huge upside, and he's got a great relationship with the head coach Doug Peterson, who, by the way, is like a quarterback whisperer. He's coached a lot of really good quarterbacks. So, what's that?
He comes from the Andy Reid coaching tree as well.
Right, exactly. So it makes sense that he would know how to do that with quarterbacks. But I would have to probably say Patrick Mahomes would be my front runner just because he's so good. He's good.
He's just really good. Yeah,
he's good.
That's the best.
I have no adjective to describe him. He's that good that I can't even think of what's the word, superlative that I could. Yeah. I could not. He's just good. I don't know.
He's good. He's good. Let's move real quick. Let's look at the playoff picture before we get into playoff predictions.
Yeah.
So here's what I got. So the AFC 1-7, for those listening to the podcast, I've got the Chiefs, the Jags, the Bengals, the Jets, and then the 3 wild card teams, the Ravens, Steelers, and Dolphins. Those are 7 I got in the AFC. And then the NFC, in this order, I've got the Cowboys, the Niners. Yeah, I got the Cowboys getting the 1 seed. I got the Cowboys, the Niners, the Lions, the Saints, and then the 3 wild card teams being the Eagles, Vikings, and Seahawks. Not a whole lot of – we see a lot of new playoff teams every year. I think the only new team, or actually I guess it's technically 2 new teams, the NFC being the Lions and the Saints. So any beefs with either of these?
No, AFC I think that's dead to rights. I think you got that spot on. NFC, I think I like Carolina winning that division, so I think they maybe sneak in.
Okay.
But other than that, I think no, I don't have no qualms about that.
Okay, well, Yeah, listen, we've talked about who gets to the Super Bowl and all this, and who's in the hunt for the wild card spots and whatnot. So let's just look at the let's see, do I have it here? So apparently I must have missed on one of the graphics. So I have the one for who wins these playoff games. So let's start with the AFC wild card games, and yet folks can see my who wins these games. So you would have Jacksonville versus Miami. I would give Jacksonville a W there. Better quarterback, better coach. Even though I kind of like McDaniel. Weapons. I give Miami the advantage there, but I would still give Jacksonville the win. Sort of a Florida matchup there. I think my Steelers go on the road and defeat the Cincinnati Bengals and get the upset. I think Cincinnati is actually going to sweep Pittsburgh in the regular season, but it is hard to beat a team 3 times in a row in one season. There's divisional familiarity there. I think I'm not liking what I'm hearing out of Cincinnati. I guess this is just from a somewhat of an intangible standpoint. Like you're hearing, maybe last year, think about the whole Burrowhead thing, and they're going after Mahomes and talking about how the AFC runs through Cincinnati. It's like, well, I mean, now it kind of runs through Kansas City. Right. So I think Pittsburgh, we know Mike Tomlin, old school, rough. That team's going to come in, dominate defensively. Baltimore almost did it with a backup quarterback. So who says Pittsburgh can't, with, in my view, an improved Kenny Pickett? So I think Pittsburgh goes on the road in Cincinnati's season in the wild card round. And I think the Baltimore Ravens going in the Jets season in the wild card round as well. Listen, I've had a love-hate relationship with the Jets. I hated the trade initially. I grew to like it in terms of Aaron really kind of bonding and gelling with his teammates. The only thing that concerns me in the long run with the Jets is Aaron Rodgers' playoff history, which is suspect at best, from coming 10 years ago off of the Super Bowl title against my Steelers. So, any disagreements with any of these playoff matchups?
No, with those picks, I think Jacksonville is they're the real deal. I think they're the real deal, so, I maybe the Bengals Steelers one. I just think Joe Burrow is they got the better quarterback in that matchup.
They do.
And I think Joe Burrow is just too good. Like he'll will them to that win. But I can see the Ravens going in New York and beating the Jets just because, like you said, Aaron Rodgers' playoff record is other than that Super Bowl season, it's pretty abysmal. Like he really hasn't had a lot of great showings or outings in the playoffs.
A lot of home playoff losses as well, and that's when it's played him.
And that's what makes it even worse. It's like you did so great to establish that, and then you tank it. It's like, what's the point? So you're right. And then those losses at home have been bad. It hasn't like it was like a shootout. He did all he can do, and the defense let him down. Like he wasn't that great.
I think that the pinnacle of that was when they lost to the 49ers when San Francisco didn't score an offensive touchdown.
Right.
That was kind of the whole the big point there. So I don't think he'll be that bad. With the Jets, and got good weapons there, good defense. But I believe in Lamar. I believe in John Harbaugh. I believe in the Ravens roster enough to get that victory. To the NFC wild card, here's my predictions. I give. Let's see. Did we put it up here? Here we go. San Francisco gets the win over the Seattle Seahawks in a rematch of last year's wild card game. Although obviously you have Seattle win the division. But should this matchup occur, I would give the 49ers the win. Detroit beats Minnesota in another divisional matchup or interdivision matchup in the wild card round. Again, I like Detroit's defense, how it's improved this offseason. The offense is as good as there is in football. I think Philly goes on the road to New Orleans and absolutely destroys the Saints, dominates them, kind of like Dallas did last year to Tampa Bay, where they're the wild card team, but they have a better record. They're a better overall football team. So should these matchups occur, any disagreements with the wild card situations there?
You know what? No, San Francisco is a good playoff team, man. So I think the game will be closer this time around than the last playoff game they had between each other. But San Francisco still might get the nod just because they're good, man. They're just a perennial powerhouse. I like Detroit in their first playoff win in a while, right? And of course, the Eagles should beat the Saints. They should.
Okay, here's where it gets fun. Divisional round, AFC.
There we go.
You'll have Kansas City versus my Steelers, the Jags versus the Ravens. If we get this in divisional weekend, please God, let us get this. Would be so good, for in terms of the matchups and the results. I have to be objective here. The run for Pittsburgh comes to an end at Arrowhead Stadium.
I agree.
Mahomes has never. The worst season for Mahomes has been a loss at home in the AFC Championship game. I have no reason to believe that won't continue this season. They'll beat Pittsburgh. I'll be in a somewhat close game, but listen, obviously Kansas City. I love Kenny Pickett, but what is the understatement of the 2023 season? Kenny Pickett isn't exactly Patrick Mahomes,
right?
So I think that goes without saying. But I think Kansas City wins. I think Jacksonville beats Baltimore. I thought about Baltimore. I think this could be the best game of the divisional round. And I think, listen, I believe in Trevor Lawrence. I believe in the weapons there. And listen, I get both quarterbacks have never played in a conference title game yet, but obviously Lawrence hasn't been in the league as long as Lamar. I'm going to roll with Trevor. I'm going to roll with the MVP of the league this season, and the Jacksonville Jaguars get to the AFC title game. So any issues with my pick?
No, I like these two. I think that, better out of the two, the first game, the better quarterback is going to win. Usually, if you have the better quarterback, you're going to win.
Yep.
More often than not. And in the second matchup, although Lamar has been pretty good throughout his career, Trevor Lawrence, it's his time. And I think he would win that game.
He is the man. To the NFC. This will be fun. The Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles on divisional weekend. The number that game will get on Fox or whatever network gets that will be through the roof.
Man.
And then the San Francisco 49ers against the Detroit Lions. Technically, San Francisco does have the better roster. Dallas is going to the NFC Championship game. Detroit's going to the NFC Championship game. That will be your matchup, Ryan Flowers.
Detroit.
Knockoff.
Wow.
I have been saying for months, and I will stick with it. The Detroit Lions will play in the NFC title game. Been saying that since the draft. I'm going to stick to it and be held to it. They will upset San Francisco. They have the pieces to do so. Great offense against a great defense. Offense tends to win more times than not. And I've got Dallas over Philly. Listen, Dak has historically been great against Philadelphia in the past. Last time they played, when the Eagles, in my view, had a better defense, Dak hung 40 on him on 400 yards passing. So I think he comes in, home game for Dallas, and they finally break through and get to the NFC title game. So with these two picks, I know you were shocked about the whole Detroit thing. I know, obviously,
I'm
love it if
floored
Dallas,
right now.
Philly.
I like the Dallas one, but the Niners and Lions, although I like Dan Campbell and the Lions and what I think they can do this season, I just don't think they're good enough to beat the San Francisco 49ers on the road in Santa Clara. I just don't think they would.
Crazier things have happened.
Just saying. No, you're right.
I'm just saying. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So now AFC Championship game, you will have, to me, two of the three best quarterbacks on planet Earth facing off. Jaguars, Chiefs. And when it's all said and done, I think the motivation is a real thing, and it played in part last year with the whole Burrowhead thing and the Bengals talking trash going that game. I think, listen, the MVP will be announced right before the Super Bowl, but everybody will kind of know who the MVP is. Mahomes will know, and he will show up, and he will show out, and the Kansas City Chiefs will get to their second straight Super Bowl. This would be, I think, the fourth in the last 5 years for them. In this run, in this, sort of dynasty, certainly budding dynasty that they have here. Kansas City gets back to Super Bowl 58, and they knock out the Jacksonville Jaguars in the process. So, listen, I think this would be an amazing football game, Ryan. What do you think?
I like this matchup. It was a good game the last time they played in the playoffs in the divisional round. Was it? Yeah. So
yeah, it was.
And Jags were there. Like, they were just maybe a play or two away, but Patrick Mahomes is good at home, and I don't see them going into I was going to say Foxborough, but Arrowhead and beating Kansas City. So no, I like this pick.
Listen, the Arrowhead Invitational is a very real thing. At least that's been what the AFC Championship has been since 2018. So I got Kansas City winning. Okay, so here's the fun one. So you got Dallas and you got Detroit. Our man Patrick, who's a big Cowboys fan, is in the comments here. He says, Detroit has not won a playoff game since 1991, which happened to occur against the Dallas Cowboys. That was actually the year before Dallas's dynasty really kicked off. Barry Sanders ran roughshod on Dallas, and Detroit, that's the last time that they've really been relevant from a championship contending standpoint. So I think you'll get Detroit, you'll get Dallas. Those teams actually play later this season. And Ryan Flowers, audience, the Dallas Cowboys will play in Super Bowl 58. The Dallas Cowboys will go to the Super Bowl this season. Dak Prescott will shut the haters up this year. They'll go in. Obviously, I mentioned Detroit had a better defense this year than last year. Dak will torch them, okay? He's historically been great against the Detroit Lions. If you look at his numbers against them, I think he'll show up, he'll show out, and the Dallas Cowboys will play in Super Bowl 50. I know you love that, Ryan.
I do. I have nothing else to say. I am without words.
You should listen. I had to give your team love. I think this is. I don't think this is the best team Dallas has had. In this championship drive. I think the 2007 team, in my view, is the best. That team was stacked. Before they obviously lost to the New York Giants, but I think this is, without question, the clearest path that they have had to the Super Bowl. And listen, I cannot even, if this matchup happened, Detroit won, I cannot even imagine the backlash the Cowboys would get if they're a game away from the Super Bowl, and here come the Detroit Lions, the fighting Dan Campbell's in to get the W. But I think it's all said and done. The Dallas Cowboys will play the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 58. And again, we talk about ratings, we talk about numbers. I cannot even. This may be the most watched
Oh, it
American
has to
sporting
be.
event of all time.
Of all
Ryan
time.
Flowers.
Of all time.
It
Of all
would
time.
be incredible. Look at see Barry can't even give me a little bit of an inch. He says this feels like pandering to the Dallas. No. Listen. When have I ever been a guy, Barry, to pander to what I think people want me to say? This is what I think was going to happen. The Cowboys going to the Super Bowl, and Barry says salute. I have to call it like I see it, and I think Dallas has as clear of path as they've ever had, and Dak will bounce back.
Yeah, they got a chance.
This is a great chance, and so. And again, when we were in this position, I had a graphic very similar to this a year ago. Obviously, it was Rams and Broncos. So I cannot imagine this pick in any universe ends up being worse than that one. There's no way. Even if Dallas doesn't get there, they certainly have a shot in Kansas City, defending champions. So the winner and therefore the champions of the NFL in Super Bowl 58 will be... Back-to-back titles for the Kansas City Chiefs. I apologize, Ryan, and to all Cowboys fans watching. It'll be a heck of a run for the Cowboys. It'd be an unbelievable season if they got to the Super Bowl. But listen, a Super Bowl has back-to-back titles has not happened since the Patriots won in 03 and 04. The Chiefs are the new New England Patriots in terms of being a dynasty. Mahomes is the new Brady in terms of being in the face of the league at the quarterback position. Reed is the new Belichick. Everything is the new everything with the Kansas City Chiefs. This will be their third Super Bowl in the Reed Mahomes era, the fourth overall for the Chiefs as a franchise, and they will get the W in Las Vegas. In your home Las Vegas, by the way, the Super Bowl will be a Chiefs-Cowboys Super Bowl. Kansas City goes back-to-back. Ryan Flowers, your thoughts?
I can't argue with this. Like you said, Kansas City, they're going to be in that position to be in that game to win back-to-back. I mean, they almost did it a couple years ago, but, Tom Brady foiled their plans. And I think they'll have a chance again to repeat as champions. And literally, they have everything going for them right now. I mean, you got the best quarterback in the league. You got one of the best play callers in the league. That's a head coach. That's all you need. And for Dallas to even get out of the divisional round would be a win, I think. So for them to even make a Super Bowl, as much I would want to see them win, because literally, man, they haven't won one since I was in the 5th grade. I'll be 40 next year, and so that lets you know how long it's been since they've won a Super Bowl, and I'm still with the Cowboys. So I don't expect. I'm glad that you feel this way about them. I have very low expectations for them as a fan. Unfortunately, it's just because
you've been hurt too many times.
Like I just explained, I was in the 5th grade. That was 1995. I was what? I don't know. Let's see. You're 5th grade. You're probably about 10 years old, maybe. It's like 30 something years since they won a Super Bowl.
28 years since they
28 years.
Yeah.
So I really don't have much to cheer for other than just win a playoff game, man, and I'll be all right with that, I guess. But if they make it to the Super Bowl, I don't know. I mean, I always told myself, they ever won a Super Bowl as I was an adult, I don't even know what I think I would cry. It would be like the birth of my child. I would just
your son's name Dallas, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. So I don't know, man. I just seeing their name next to the Super Bowl logo.
Let me just back up there. There you go.
Oh my God. I'm excited just to see that. And I know this is all, hypotheticals, but just seeing that, it don't even seem right. And I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm a lifelong Cowboys fan. I know we got a lot of fans that are younger that haven't lived through what I've lived through, but if anybody knows the Cowboys and the plight that they've been through, it's your old boy Clutch Sports, because I've been a Cowboys fan all my life. From the good teams from the Aikmans to the Quincy Carter days I've seen a bunch of bad Chad Hutchinson, so the Dave Campo era when he was the head coach. So
can you imagine that if the Cowboys did win this? It's just a hypothetical, obviously.
Again,
I think they're getting there. I really do. Yeah. But if say they win the whole darn thing, the next day I'm here as the resident Dak Prescott defender, obviously, as I've been for a very long time.
Brother.
I'll be on cloud 9 as a Dak guy. I'll probably have you on, I'll have Barry on, I'll have the Cam thing. Listen, it'll be a big old party. Okay.
I got a list of people I'm gonna be calling the minute they win that Super Bowl that talk trash. I'm like, hey, remember you told me back in 2005 we ain't nothing? Hey, we won the Super Bowl. I literally have actually I have the book right here.
Oh my goodness, you got the book on set right here. Look at this.
You can't see it's a green book, but yeah, it's right here. I got a list of phone numbers. I'm petty, and
He's-
so I'm ready to go. If I die, I'll pass it on to my son. I'm like, hey son, take this book. There's the names in there. I want you to call
Call
these
on my
people and
behalf.
talk trash. Call them and let them know that I hate them and we won the Super Bowl. Like, just let them know.
Just to see the glow in your eyes and in your face, for this to even be a possibility. Listen, I'm not just saying this because you're here. I haven't been. I have never in the history of carving it up predicted the Cowboys to get to the Super Bowl. So I'm not. I mean, listen, I'm not just like being a delusional
I
Dak
know.
Prescott fan and
That's
former
what I'm saying.
Cowboys
Like,
fan. But
yeah,
I think it's going to happen. I think this is the year to
I
get
hope
there, not to
so.
win it, but to get there. And that'd be good enough for a lot of Cowboys fans. So, do you have it real quick before we get out of here? Do you have a Super Bowl prediction, or are you just going to roll with what I said?
You know what? The Chiefs will be in the game for sure.
Okay.
Just right now, if I had to think real quick, I would probably say because the NFC is so wide open. Like it's weird because the AFC is competitive, but it's not because we're all going to say Kansas City is going to be in the game. Like I don't think So it's wide open, but it's not wide open. But the NFC, there's like no real surefire team that we can say that hey, like they're going to be in that game. Maybe the Eagles. You got to give them respect. They made it back there last year. How will the Super Bowl hangover thing? Will it be a thing for them? I don't know. The Niners, will they be able to come back? So, but just long story short, I'll probably say I'll go Niners, Kansas City, or repeat a couple years ago.
Okay. I actually I thought about that, but I'm like, okay, I know I have to put Detroit in the NFC Championship game because I've been saying it for months.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to put Dallas in. I think this is a clear path for me to do it. So any last, I guess, thoughts? The NFL season kicks off in a few days. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, man.
It's a long off season, but we're finally here on the dawn of another football season.
Yes.
Do you have any last thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I'll be back Sunday. I'm gonna get my picks. I'm gonna start working on my shot. For those who know, I've been diabolically just been busy. I coach high school football now. I just got that job a couple weeks ago, Sloan Canyon. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yes,
Sloan
sir.
Canyon Pirates representing for them. So we're in the middle of our season, so it's been taking a lot of my time with prepping and all that. But for sure, Sunday I'll get back on with my picks, my clutch picks of the week. Actually, I finished above 500 last year, so it was pretty good. It was a pretty good season. So that'll be back on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, I'm locked in. I'm ready for the season, man. Football is back, because like when you're a football show like me and there's not a lot going on, man, it's hard to just kind of come up with content, right? So for those who don't know, but with the season back in the saddle, man, there's going to be tons of stuff to talk about. We got to predict games every week. So I'm excited about that. I can start, making my bets, making that moolah a little bit. So I'm excited to be back, man. But this was fun. This was fun. I hope we could continue doing this every year, man. God willing. I love it.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you listening. We dealt with some technical difficulties. We dealt with some schedule conflicts, but Ryan showed up. Ryan did a fantastic job. Thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on. Hopefully, as you said, we can do it again for a fourth straight year in 2024. And
yes,
Cowboys Chiefs in the Super Bowl. You can book it, and this is gonna be a fun year. I'd love to come on your show. You come on my show throughout the football season. We can make it happen, and it'll definitely be fun. But take care, my man. Enjoy the rest of your Labor Day. God bless.
All right, man. Bye, Bryson.
Yes, sir. Ryan Flowers, the man, the myth, the legend, once again, host of Clutch Sports Talk, Coach Ryan Flowers, obviously. And no, listen, I could very much see a scenario in which San Francisco does get to the Super Bowl. I think they're the best roster in the NFL. I just think from a matchup standpoint, I think Detroit matches up well against San Francisco. I think they end up getting to and winning the Super Bowl. Real quick, we got a comment here from Patrick. He says, 37 years old. I'm right there with you, Ryan. I was 9 years old the last time Dallas won a title. You will come that close, my friend. You will see them in the title. I don't think they'll win it because I will never bet against the great Patrick Mahomes. And then just for me, for my own sake, I could have people get off my back with the Dak slander. If Dak gets to the Super Bowl, a Cowboys quarterback has not done in 30 years almost. I can have that. And with that, That is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Again, through technical difficulties, we ended up starting the show 5 minutes late. So some issues on my part, so I apologize. But I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live, a regularly scheduled programming on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. And if we're not to 200 already, 200 subscribers, we're darn close. So if you haven't subscribed, hit that big red subscribe button. Of course, like, share, comment. But once again, hit that big red subscribe button. We're that close to 200 subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed, tell someone you know, tell your friends to tell your friends, your family, everybody. Subscribe to Carving Up Live, and of course, subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you listen to your podcast, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere you get your favorite podcast. This is one of my favorite shows of the year to do. Again, 3 straight years doing it with Ryan. It gets better every time we do it. And here's what I know for a fact. This Super Bowl prediction will be infinitely better. And a matter of fact, I believe it'll be correct. It'll be better than last year's, and I think it'll be correct. By the way, for the record, I picked Tampa Bay, Kansas City in 2020, Tampa Bay to beat Kansas City in 2020, and that's exactly what happened, and that is going to repeat 3 years later. Okay. Hope everybody has a great week. I'll see y'all on Wednesday to predict Chiefs, Lions. We got an actual football game to predict. Let's go. Have a great week, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And as always, as I say, please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Football is back. I'm so excited. See y'all on Wednesday. God bless you all. Peace out. Chiefs, Cowboys, Super Bowl. That'll be fun. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.